Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome back to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lara, and this is episode 52, guys. It's been a whole year of recording episodes, and it's been fun, and it's been a pleasure to share information. And this conversation, we're just going to keep it very real. I'm going to really try to pretend like you're right in front of me, and we're just having this conversation. Today, I want to talk about the power of authenticity and the implication it has on our spiritual life, in our physical life, in our mental, emotional lives. And what brought this up, I want to start off by sharing this story of something that happened to me this past weekend. As I'm recording this, it's Tuesday, April 29th, and over the weekend, I was at a naturopathic medical conference. And this is a group of people that we have something in common, something alike, right? We're vitalists. It's a great group, great information that's being shared there at the conference. And the first 2 days, guys, I found myself plopped over, just depleted. Something was just sucking the life force out of me in this room. And I would get home after each day on those first 2 days, just exhausted, not caring to eat, just wanting to lay down and sleep. And I did. But it was a disturbed rest. I couldn't rest. I was disturbed in the sleep. And Sunday, I wake up to go on the third day of this conference, and I am just like, Lord, what is going on with me? Why does this happen to me? Now, some of you listening to this might relate to this. You know, there's a whole talk about highly sensitive people and people who are introverted. You know, their social battery is drained when they're out with many people. But this doesn't happen all the time in all social settings. And so here I am having this conversation with God and asking, why is it that I cannot be around large groups of people? I feel depleted afterwards. I have to sleep. It doesn't matter if it was after church, I would have to go home and sleep for 2 to 3 hours every Sunday. Or if I'm at a conference or a certain group gathering, like I have to go home and recharge my battery. Now, mind you, I can go hike the desert for hours in the heat and be energized by all of that. I can go hit the gym and do a killer workout and walk out of there feeling on top of the world, full of energy physically and mentally, feeling great. But here I am in a group of people. The topics are interesting. No one's doing anything, that's eventful there, that's causing any harm. But my body is just not liking it. So on this Sunday, I'm having this conversation with God in the morning, and I'm like, okay, I am going to seat myself in the very back, as far as I can, in the very back on a corner away from everyone else. And I noticed that on that day, it wasn't as bad, right? My energy was a little bit more up. And what I did is I kind of secluded myself from the group during breaks and lunch to not interact with so many people. And so I noticed that my energy was a little bit better on Sunday. The next day, I had to spend all my Monday. Thank God my assistant reminds me like, hey, remember the next day after a conference, just block your schedule because you're always exhausted. And so my Monday was off and I slept. I'm not gonna have any shame in saying this. I slept almost all day on Monday. That was yesterday. And I really needed that. And I love my sleep. And I recharged myself. I purged off whatever was going on. But I spent time with the Lord asking him, what is it about these social environments? I like people. I like to interact with people. I'm not antisocial. I'm not afraid to speak and engage with others. But why is it in some environments I am depleted? Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, me too. That's me. Why is it? And I want to talk about this because I do believe that several of my patients, and many of you listening, might relate to this. And it has nothing to do with being introverted or extroverted. It has to do with your nervous system. And I also believe, because that's what the Lord was really pouring into me, was that God designed us to be a certain way. If you go back and look at stories in the Bible of prophets, many of these prophets didn't like necessarily being around many people. Like, look at the story of Elijah. He would run off, away from everyone into the mountains. He wanted to seclude himself from everyone because he just wanted to hear God's voice. And I find that people who have a true prophetic gifting, they like being alone. Not because they're lonely. Actually, they feel more connected when they're alone because they're connected to the Spirit of the Lord. They're connected to Holy Spirit. And they're fulfilled and satisfied with His presence. Now, I also believe that some of us have very sensitive nervous systems. People call it intuition, whatever. I think we have sensitive nervous systems, and our soul picks up as well when someone is being fake, when someone's not authentic. And it's subtle cues of that person, maybe something they're thinking or they're feeling about you. And you're picking up on that energy that person is putting out, but your mind is trying to make sense of it, and it's not quite registering. You're not able to make sense. And so it takes a lot of energy for your nervous system to try to figure out what I always say. Your nervous system's always trying to figure out, am I safe? Am I not safe? And even if there's no violence or anything, it's just a social interaction you're having with someone. The safety part that comes into this conversation is, am I safe to be myself in this moment? Is it safe for me to say what I want to say and express myself? Of course, being respectful, right? I'm not talking extremes here. I'm saying, can I express my thoughts, my emotions in this situation? Can I be myself? Or am I too much for that person? That they'll think I'm too much, I'm too intense, or that I'm not good enough for them. And these are all happening very quickly in our brains, in our nervous system. And it takes up a lot of energy. Our brain, our nervous system in general, just takes up a lot of energy for it to function. And when we have this extra emotional information to process, this unseen, unheard conversations that people are having that are not telling you, but they're there. Some of us are feelers, and we feel what you're thinking. I can tell you, I've been to church many times where someone will hug me and say hi and do all that stuff, but I know they don't like me. I know they don't like me. And maybe they're jealous, or they find me annoying, or they think I'm a know-it-all, whatever it is. I can feel your thoughts, and I can feel your emotions. And that's some of you. Some of you feel people's thoughts and you feel their emotions, but they're not intelligent to where you're able to make sense of it. It's very obscure. It's not clear. And so you're trying to make sense of it. And this is why some of us are drained to being around, excuse my language, but we don't like being around fake ass people. We don't. Because if I cannot be who I am, because I don't want to overwhelm you, I don't want to make you feel less of, I don't want to, offend you or whatever it is, even if I am going about it the right way, it takes a lot of energy on my part to try to dilute myself so I can fit your mold of what you think I should be like. And that's very exhausting. And as a woman, I'll tell you, being especially in church environments, oh my Lord, I keep going to the Lord and saying, God, you told me to be a doctor. Did I not hear you right? You told me, go help my people this way and go do that and go do this. Was that not you? Am I wrong? Because the church world is making me feel, whether it's indirect or not, that I'm wrong for the choices that I've made to become a doctor, to have a business, to do these things. that I need to make everyone else a priority but these things. And so authenticity, what is it? But more importantly, this authenticity, we have to be living honestly before God, first and foremost. My power of being authentic is, am I being myself? Am I being honest with God more than anyone else? I've told this to people before as I was going through my healing journey. I found myself telling my doctor at that time, who was amazing, she's an amazing doctor, and I said, you know what? If I cannot be myself in any environment, just be authentic, then what's the point to living? If I have to put a mask on to be a certain person, put a different mask with a different group of people. And that's what was happening in this moment at this conference, is that though we share the same profession and we share similar values of medicine and how we approach healthcare, right? And this group is very unique. We're focused on the foundations of natural medicine, the vitalistic part, like true to the medicine, right? That there was this part of me that I did not feel resonated with me. And it wasn't anything that anyone did. It's just that within me, I did not fit into everything they were saying. And there was this friction of, I'm holding back on speaking because I don't want to offend anyone. And so I'm keeping myself small, invisible, right? Without realizing that I'm doing that. Wanting to share things that I know have power and have meaning. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a desire to say them. So where in your life are you holding yourself back from being authentic out of the fear that you're going to offend someone, or they're going to accuse you of something, or they're going to think you're too much, or you're not good enough? These are things that we should start reflecting on. I want to share a scripture because God desires the truth in the inward parts of us to come out, right? So in Psalms 51:6, David says, "Behold, you desire truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part you will make me to know wisdom." One of the things that I admired about David's, all of his Psalms, is how genuine and authentic he was in his writings. He was just purely pouring his heart out to God, not looking to provide a performance, not because he was perfect. He was just raw, he was broken, and he was honest. And I love that. And I find that when I'm around people like my patients are, they are raw, they are broken, and they're honest, and they're vulnerable, and they're putting it all at the table because they want help. And needless to say, when I have long days in my clinic or tough cases in my clinic where people are sharing, pouring their hearts out of their traumas and their hurts, I am not depleted. My energy's okay, because we were able to have an honest conversation with each other. And if you're my patient and you're listening to this, you know that I have most likely have shared some of my hurts and my pains with you. And the reason I do that is not to take away from your experience. It's because I want you to see the human in me. And that's something that in medical school, they tell you not to do. They tell you to not share who you are with your patient. They talk about setting very rigid guidelines and boundaries between you and your patient. Then how does one, as a physician, how does a physician build trust, right? How do they build that environment of safety and letting the patient know that I understand where you're coming from? I'm not perfect. I am not perfect. Just like you. And I'm an imperfect person. I'm an imperfect doctor that I'm working on me and I'm helping you work on you. I'm several notches up in the ladder of healing, and I'm just trying to give you my hand to pull you up so that you can be where I'm at. That's a very different approach to medicine that you don't see. Because unfortunately, medical doctors, they put themselves on this pedestal like they're God, like they know better than anyone. And this is why I don't like when doctors tell their patients, if you don't do this treatment, you have 6 months to live. Who are you, sir or ma'am, to tell another human when their life is going to end? You're not God. No matter how brilliant you are as a doctor or as a scientist or whatever career you have, you are not God, and you do not have the ultimate decision in someone's life and outcome. And so the same thing in churches. We all, not me, but a lot of people pretend like they have this perfect walk. And let's be honest, I know you're in traffic driving angry, cursing at the person in front of you. It's okay. I'm not going to judge you for it. Some people will. I've had patients in my clinic who are in so much pain, and they're cursing up a storm. And then at some point, the patient will apologize and say, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't be cussing so much. I'll say, why not? You're in pain, you're frustrated, you haven't been heard, you haven't been provided any solutions to your problems. You have every right to be angry. So what if you cuss him in my presence? I'm not offended by that. And their expression of me sharing that I'm not offended and I'm not judging them because they decided to throw the F-bomb in front of me. That's how they authentically feel. Now I know. I get to see the internal part of who they are and how they really are feeling in that moment. And I'd rather they express their emotions and hold it inside. They're not projecting their emotions or their cursing towards me. I don't take it personal. And so what if we would have the ability to sit with people who are having the raw experience and brokenness as David did, and they're being honest? What's wrong with that? And so it's a reflection of this there's power in authenticity, and there's freedom in being authentic. You don't have to worry about which mask are you going to put on when you go into a particular environment. I tell my patients and I tell my friends and anyone I meet, the way I'm talking to you right here is the way I talk to everyone. I just want to be who I am in different settings, you know. It's easier for me. And sometimes I am a little naive and I go into an environment thinking that I can be myself and everyone else is being themselves, and I'm hit with this wall of reality that no, everyone has a front, and I can feel that, and it's uncomfortable. So I'd rather be alone on top of a mountain where I'm not feeling that ickiness. And so, you know, in our Christian walk, you know, Jesus didn't expect for us to be perfect. He's not expecting perfection out of us. When Jesus came, he came to the imperfect, to the broken, to the sick. He wants us to be honest with him. He wants us to be genuine with him. And God is not going to be impressed, you know, by our highlights and all of the good stuff we're doing. He's impressed when we can be honest with him about, I'm angry. I am so angry at this situation. And he'll be the first to tell you, feel it and let it go. Surrender it, but you got to feel it. A pet peeve of mine when I hear people say, ignore your feelings and emotions, just, you know, don't listen to them. They're oftentimes misleading. They can be misleading. They're not always misleading. God gave us emotions and feelings for a reason. We have to use our intelligence to discern, why am I feeling that way? Just like I did this weekend at my conference, right? Why am I feeling this way? There's no apparent threat. No one's doing anything to me. Why am I feeling this way? What is it that I'm picking up and sensing? Lord, help me. Right? And so we need to be able to filter through that. Process the feeling that comes up, not avoid it. And if anything, I tell people, Feel the emotion, feel the feeling, ask God to help you to discern where's this coming from, what to do with it. And He's going to walk you through that feeling. If you're feeling grief and you feel like crying, cry. And cry your way through that grief. Not over the grief. Not around the grief. Not suppress the grief. Not bury the grief. You walk through the grief itself. You walk through the anger. You walk through the emotion of sadness or joy, whatever it is. And in my studies, in my education, one thing that I've learned when we studied all the anatomy and the physiology of the brain and the mental emotional stuff of it is that when we suppress one emotion, we suppress them all. The amygdala that perceives emotion is not selective. So if you are sad and grieving and you don't want to feel the pain of sadness and grief, and you suppress that by running around and keeping yourself busy and keeping yourself distracted, that was me, keeping yourself distracted from feeling the sadness, feeling the emotions, you're going to suppress all of them, even the good ones. And if you suppress all the emotions, how are you going to feel the presence of God? How are you going to feel His joy and love and all of those good feelings? You can't, because you're suppressing them all. So now you're pretending. You're pretending to be happy through the grief. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be moments that you do have happiness. But when sadness comes along, acknowledge it, walk yourself through that, get through it, not trying to suppress it. I think people need to be very cautious about telling others about suppressing their feelings and emotions. Instead, discern them. Feel them and discern them. Try to understand. And sometimes there is no logic to it, and you let those go. And sometimes there is logic to it, and you take it up and you do something with it. But we have a culture that we've been told to suppress, and then we have this extreme side of feel it all and stay in your feelings. Well, no, you don't want to do that either. We want to move through it. We want to be able to move through those emotions and feelings, not get stuck in them. That's the problem. That's that extreme, right, of if you don't process things well, you will get stuck in that anger. You will get stuck in depression. You will get stuck in sadness, and you won't be able to move past that and not really fully, authentically enjoying your life because you're stuck. And nobody likes to get stuck. So Jesus, when we look at His life, Jesus never wore a mask. He never pretended that something was okay when it wasn't. So he spoke with grace, and He spoke with truth. And I'll be honest, I'm still learning to speak with grace. I am heavy on the truth, and I'm learning to speak with grace, as many people are, But Jesus, He ate with sinners. He wept openly. He cried, right? He mourned loss. He also flipped tables out of anger, right? Of righteous anger when He saw an injustice. And He spent hours alone with His Father. And there's nothing wrong with taking time to be alone with the Father and have God show you what is it that you need to know. What's the next move? What's the next step? What do I need to do? Tell me about me. That's an authentic conversation. Look, I didn't grow up in church. I don't church well, but I know how to have a relationship with God well. And my conversations with God are no different than this conversation. And so oftentimes we're like, oh, Lord Jesus, please. And we're praying to a God that's distant, not realizing that God is here, present, inside of us, in our presence. And we're praying to someone like they're distant, And we need to just, like He's sitting here, talk to Him like He's sitting here, God, what should I do in this situation? I feel stuck. Help me, guide me. You don't need to pray and make it a performance. God doesn't want that. He knows when you're being sincere in your heart. So in Matthew 11:28 is one of the most beautiful invitations in Scripture. And it says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. God Himself is saying, come to me. Are you weary and burdened? Like I was this weekend. I was dying, guys. I thought, what is wrong with me, Lord? Why can't I keep my eyes open? I felt like I was 100 years old, nodding my head. And he gave me rest. And he had to reset my nervous system. And I couldn't think clearly till it was all done. And then he poured into me and showed me why. And he doesn't, God doesn't tell you, go fix yourself and then come back when you're better. No, he wants you to come to him when you're burdened and weary. He says, come as you are. That is the true power of being authentic. He's saying, come as you are. It can't get any more real like that. He's not expecting you to stop doing drugs, stop drinking, stop sleeping around, stop cussing, clean up your act, get your act together, right? He's not expecting for any of that. He's saying, just come to me as you are. Let me pick up your burden. Let me lighten that burden for you. Find rest in me. I will restore your soul and I will show you who you are. And that's where repentance comes. When we're in his presence, we no longer want the old self. I don't want to pretend I'm okay when I'm not okay. And so when people ask me, how are you doing? And I'm not doing okay, I'm like, I'm not doing okay. But let's keep on the conversation on something else. If it's not pertinent, if it's not the appropriate time to have that conversation, right? But I can still say I'm not feeling well. And so, the heartbreak of this spiritual authenticity is coming to God without this pretense. Knowing that he already sees everything. He sees everything. Your brokenness, your mistakes, your faults, all of it. He sees it all. And so you can just lay all of that, those expectations that you think God has of you or other people have of you, and God sees it, and he still loves you that way. That is the reality, is that God still loves you the way you are, even through your sin, even through your imperfections. He still loves you. Just like a parent, right? I always tell my daughters that they don't have to perform for me. They don't have to do anything to deserve my love. They had my love from the moment they were in my womb, and I held them and I looked into their little eyes. They have my love. It's given. It's not something they earn, not something they have to deserve to have. They have it. And there might be situations that they do things that upset me, but I still love them no matter what. And God is the same way, even greater than that. His grace and his mercy supersedes the grace and mercy that any human can give you. He sees you for who you are, and he still loves you that way. And this right here is what's helped me get through my life. And I tell this to my patients, especially young people. I tell them, look, if there's one thing you can learn from me today, just take this one thing. And that's the same for you listening to this conversation. And that is that no matter who you are, no matter how rich or poor, how beautiful you are, how talented and skilled, it doesn't matter who you are, what age, what you've accomplished in life. You will never, ever, ever please all people in your life. You just can't. It's not possible. There's something you're going to do or say or not do or say that will offend someone and will upset them, even if that wasn't your intention. Because you can be mindful of what comes out of your mouth and how you say it, how you communicate it, and say it very kind and just with poise, right, and grace. And people can still take that statement the wrong way. And it's none of your business how they interpret what you had to say. It's none of your business how they receive that message. If you did your due diligence and delivered that message with grace, and they're upset about it, there's nothing you can do about it. You just got to let it go. Let them feel that way and think that way about you. We were not designed to please other humans. And we were not designed for other humans to please us. But we were designed to please God. And all he wants is for us to be authentic with him and to walk with him and come to him when we need help, right? And give him, show our gratitude, not just when we need his help, but show gratitude of that. There is a cost of hiding. This cost of hiding behind a mask, especially in our faith, it's going to cost us intimacy with God and with others. Authentic intimacy. Really getting to know people for who they are without judgment. This cost of hiding also leads people to deeper sin. Back when you think of Genesis, where Adam and Eve sinned, what did they do? They hid from God. Why did they hide? Because they were ashamed. They were naked. And shame will often tells us to cover up, to hide. And so that's the price of hiding, of not being authentic. And I'm not telling you to go tell your business to everyone. I'm not in the belief camp either. I think that if you're going to share anything about yourself that's deep and that's hurtful and painful, you want to use discretion with who you're sharing this information with, even church people. I'm going to tell you that, because some people just love to gossip and they run their mouth telling everyone else your business, and I'm not okay with that. So just because you're in an environment that you assume that people would be respectful of your privacy and would give you grace and would do all those nice things, they're human. So you still have to use discretion with who you're going to share these things that you're ashamed of, that you're covering. Find someone who is safe. Find someone who's trustworthy. And more importantly, someone who can actually help you, who can guide you through that. Don't just say it to say it. Say it to someone share these things with someone who's able to help you get through that, right? So authenticity, it is a very powerful thing. And, this authenticity in community, it's where I find the struggle. That, I know in the book of James 5:16, it tells us to confess our sins to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed. But I will say, as a precaution, to be careful what you are confessing to whom, even in a church setting. Because I have seen people who are not respectful of people's privacy. So there is power in this vulnerability, especially if it's done with the right people in the right setting. All right, man. So this living authentically, it's a process for some people. And I really think that the reason that many people are not willing to or not able to is because they still have a lot of healing that they have to do for themselves. There's still a lot of processing that they need to go through. And it takes work, and people don't want to take the work. But eventually, this will show up in your life. It'll start to affect your relationships. People will start to see that you're wearing a mask and that you're not being truly yourself. And then there's a lot of people like me who are just very sensitive to, to the fake. We feel it. We see it. We might not call you out on it. And that's us giving you grace, because we don't want to make anyone feel ashamed or embarrassed about it. But we feel it and it's uncomfortable. And so as I wrap up here, I just want to share some simple reminders of, that are powerful. Spend time with God without performance. So pray honestly. Read your scriptures, not to check a box, but to hear His voice. And bring your real emotions. He can handle your emotions. Trust me. Step 2, let go of spiritual perfectionism. So God's love for you isn't based on your record. It's based on Christ. And that's freedom. Because there's nothing that we could do to ever be perfect. So just give up on that perfectionism. And the third point is invite safe people into your story. So find trusted believers that you can be honest with. And your authenticity might just give them the courage to be real too. And so I hope that in the interactions that I have with people, that it gives them the courage to be real, to be authentic. I'm not asking for perfection. Just be yourself. I always say, unless being yourself is being a jerk, then keep your mouth shut. Because some people are just jerks, and that is not truly the essence of who they are. People who are jerks are the hurt version of what God intended them to be. They're hurt, and the pain they spill over is their behavior. But the healed part of them would not act in such a way. So, hey, I want to encourage you to take a step to living more authentic with God, with in your relationships, with everyone you interact. Just be yourself and be comfortable being yourself. And so I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. And until next time, be blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raices, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.